where those who perceive truth may strive to make others see.
A big, powerful America, and shoot them for what?
On that continent, we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other.
I want you to imagine that you're the manager and of a large supplier of bananas in the U.S., and there's a revolt taking place in South America where, you guys get most of your bananas. And this revolt is threatening how much land how much land you have to farm on. And you are told by your superiors to call a man who runs a private military in South America, and tell him that you want to quash that rebellion and make sure that your land is safe. Today we're going to be talking about private military contractors, or what we'll refer to as PMCs, and the Renaissance, and we'll be referencing the book The Modern Mercenary by McGate. And I guess we'll also talk about a little bit of my individual knowledge, what I've been picking up over the years, and the books. I mean, because there's one thing I'm noticing is there's a lot of overlap between a lot of the books in terms of really when it comes down to calling out and trying to figure out what doesn't work. And I think of myself as a healing conspiracy theorist, but when it comes down to this idea of a private military, and this book, particularly by McGate, about really private military contractors, it's actually scary. Just the idea of how accurate a lot of it is in terms of the idea of our situation versus my emotions about our situation now, in terms of how on the point a lot of things are. Now, it's I mean, I powered through this, I really did, and I learned a lot. I think it was a really enjoyable book, and I'd highly recommend it. I mean, but you will be scared. You will be scared. Like, just reading this book is not. I mean, it's gonna kind of let you know about what's taking place on a global scale, with in terms of our military powers on a global scale, right? And Sean, he talks about how right now the U.S. is really the current top marketer for PSC or for PMCs, and its use in places. Afghanistan and Iraq right now is where we currently see PMCs most heaviest in terms of their use, and they kind of been growing in popularity over the years. But it's something, because it's just in terms of when our public military kind of rolls back, this private military is really something that can really take our place, and is being used to take our place in a lot of areas. It's contractors, right? So the idea is these are people who are, essentially, they know how to be very efficient with the idea of combat and violence, or in a lot of situations, but also things that surveillance and really trying to get into just intelligence in general, in terms of intelligence gathering in a lot of these places. And what's really kind of something that sticks out is the incentive and the marketplace, and what's happening there, because we're using PMCs, right? And we're using PMCs everywhere. But the idea of we're using PMCs in on an international playing field, and that's kind of opening a door that isn't likely to shut down. We've grown. We've kind of set the precedence for this idea of really entire countries paying in PMCs, or PMCs being able to act on a stage to with a greater presence than a lot of countries would have, and it's different. It's different because these guys they're not beholden to a state. The idea is whatever this is money that these people are driven by, and that's what's that's what's so dangerous, because when it comes down to a lot of what's going on, we're seeing a few situations where PMCs are getting away with things that public militaries just can't get away with, and they're not beholden by a lot of what what a formal military would be beholden to, and you kind of realize that there's a lot to realize with this, right? And I think the idea for or the idea of putting this into private hands, we were incentivized to do this because essentially PMCs are not don't have their hands tied like public militaries across the world, and they have the reign to do things that we wouldn't necessarily be able to do as a formal, quote unquote, formal military, right? And this idea of PMCs is it's like you get so you don't really like this is not privatization of military. Like this is when you think about our state in terms of the wild west, this is, in terms of us being able to put this back into a box. I mean, I'm imagining like at some point they had it was like some kind of alien disclosure or something, but the military people, they got into a conflict with these guys in all black, or these guys who were kind of blacked out. They didn't have emblems, and they didn't seem to be a formal military, but the problem is that they had better weaponry than these guys, and when it came down to a face-off between them, these guys were telling them to stand down. They had American accents, and this place was like abroad somewhere, but it was just like you realize just how much this means in terms of we kind of get wrapped into a bubble, but really when it comes down to the face-to-face, it really does boil down to who has the better weaponry in X situation, and that is how it has always been, and that is how it really is. I'm just like imagining like one military trying to, hey, look, you guys have too many weapons on our grounds. And I'm just imagining like the corporation manager saying, you know what, you're right, you should come take them. like yeah, just show up here and we'll give them right to you, like one bullet at a time. Like it's just like what are we doing in terms of this particular situation? Because corporations they're getting a lot of power, right? And with the intro story about the banana, they're the large supplier of banana and bananas in the U.S. They already had like that. That's an actual situation, and there's a situation to where I think it was the I forget what book is it. This is like the book that really explains how like it was like a team of investigators going through and investigating the most important thing, just how far corporations have gone. And there was a situation to where in South America, I believe, and exactly the banana supplier literally like they were trying to buy farmland, and this representative came out, and he for some reason there was like a family of there was kind of a family there, and a guy got in the car with his daughter, and they were driving and talking about this deal or whatever, and at some point this guy gets out and another guy gets in the car pretty abruptly, and you realize this guy just essentially kills the farm owner. And what happens is he lets the daughter live, and that's who's telling the story, is the the daughter who lived. And it's just like it's pretty scary. And it's just a situation that I don't. It's a situation to where you kind of gotta the bright light at the end of the tunnel would be the fact that U.S. is on top in terms of the top marketer for PMCs right now. So we do have we can use that to set a precedence, right? He does say that, right? So that idea of the qualifications, what a PMC can't do, and things like that. We have power. We have market power, right? For how long, I have no idea. I don't expect I don't have too much faith in terms of the dollar, remaining on top through my lifetime, and it's in terms of. But right now, as of where we're at now, I do think we do have the power to kind of influence these PMCs as the top marketer, right? So like we'll only accept bids from contractors who are not just racist, not just outright racist or sexist people. Like we can kind of do that. We can kind of make sure that that's a thing, or just put, these guys have to or enforce, psychological evaluation techniques or something like that. But these, in terms of for the soldiers on the ground, but these are kind of where we're at now. And like I said before, I don't have faith in terms of the capability or the resilience of the U.S. dollar. It feels like I'm one of the last people to join a pyramid scheme at this point, And time's running out. Time is definitely running out, and we still do have this power over them. And I think we should definitely use that to our advantage. And the leaders of the PMC is they're looking for money, right? And this is kind of how we get our power, but it also creates a significant incentive in a lot of cases to create and sustain conflict for profit, for the means of profit, right? So you got situations to where PMCs will stir up something just so that they essentially are able to profit on the other end. And this idea of PMCs right now, I want a lot of people to understand Africa right now is kind of a playground for PMCs, right? And this precedence is kind of set up in South Africa, the country, because it's just like they're able to, or they have a PMC that was linked to South Africa called Executive Outcomes, I believe. But this PMC would essentially just wreak havoc for the white South Africans, and basically secure raw material whenever needed, or just quash rebellions, and they would do that for South Africa. And right now, it appears that the Israelis kind of play this or have kind of been in this conflict to where they've been kind of trying out a lot of techniques and selling and really acting as weapon contractors for a lot of different people based on how they experiment with the Palestinian people. And right now, and this is kind of a larger scale playground for what can take place. And these guys, there's a revolving door, of course, between people who are ex-military and PMCs, and these guys, they know, they're up to date. They can easily be up to date or further ahead than our own military in a lot of cases. And that's what happens when you kind of let these things, become privatized. The R&D department, I imagine, for the research and development department for PMCs, I imagine is completely different in terms of what they're able to do versus as little as we know about our own research and development, the research and development that PMCs kind of start up and do to become better at war. They're going to be I could easily imagine them becoming, if they're not already ahead of us, they can become easily ahead of us. And it's like I said, it's a scary situation. And these guys right now, when I say these guys, the PMCs in general, like Africa is a kind of a playground for these guys, and they're really becoming a tool that corporations can use to hold mines, minerals, raw resources, and this can be a problem. Like, of course, in South America as well, but really in Africa is where the real, like, the shroud in terms of the information that we don't get right now, and that's where a lot of these guys are operating, and essentially, I mean, I imagine just causing a lot of havoc in a lot of areas, just to make sure that corporate interests are protected. Now, in terms of right now, Sean, in this book, he mentions that there are 3 categories for PMCs, and I pretty sure I got this right. You can either train, as in like train up, kind of use the PMCs to go in and train public militaries or other militaries. You can also support other militaries by, through like kind of technology means and things of that nature, or actually just essentially just go in and act as a military on their behalf, on whoever's hiring you, or on their behalf of whoever may be hiring you, which a lot of corporations are doing, right? Or I imagine, or not even a lot, just there's just an understanding, like, this idea of like being ruled by corporations. I think we really don't understand how far we've gone in terms of the outside world, the umbrella that we live in. We can kind of, we can, the operation of a PMC, of course, is outlawed in the U.S., right? So, in most, if not all cases, we haven't run into those situations. But in terms of the idea, in terms of the corruption of our politicians and our people in general, this doesn't seem like a far stretch. The peons get out of control. We need to quash them, and it's becoming more and more apparent that the regular people, the regular citizens here, are the peons, right? Like, this is we kind of gotta see that our politicians are a lot of the times puppets for these corporate guys, who are desperate to maintain power in a lot of sense. And I really do want to add this point because there's Whitney Webb has a book about blackmail and how is kind of the CIA operates, or the kind of how our government really was transformed and by the CIA and stuff like that. But we need to understand that this has kind of become a selective force for a lot of these guys, because that's not a mistake that a lot of bad people become in power, right? So Jeffrey Epstein, one of the compliments that someone gave him on, was, oh, he's a very intelligent guy, and he lacks morals, and he really lacks morals. He doesn't care, That is. It appears to be a real factor in terms of who gains power in our current society. And when it comes down to these corporations, they get enough tapes on enough of our guys. This goes with people like when it comes down to things like Netanyahu, being really like, if this conflict ends, he goes to trials or something like that. As charged as a war criminal or some kind of criminal. Imagine that. These guys are holding like Epstein tapes over swaths of our politicians and representatives. Like like this can turn against us very quickly, right? And I think a lot of us need to kind of get to an understanding of just how quickly things can change, especially when it comes down to threatening power. We're looking at currently it's December 2024, December 21st for this particular when I'm recording this right now. This is we're looking at CEOs being threatened quite like literally, and in terms of the case of Luigi. And when it comes down to Luigi right now, he's being threatened as a terrorist. If I go through it, I survey 20 people, no one would, no one would think, oh, a terrorist. He's a terrorist, obviously. But if it comes down to the regular people versus the CEOs of corporations, that difference is dramatic, and the power, if feeling threatened enough to throw that label on Luigi, is it's a statement in terms of how far we've gone in terms of our systems. How far we've gotten away from our systems versus our systems and how they're supposed to operate versus how they actually do operate, which would be tools of the rich. But in any case, we're this idea of PMCs. This is, like I said before, it's a growing trend, and Mexico is kind of already putting this into play, right? So the idea is, in areas in Mexico, they use this to protect richer people, and so given, I mean, if you know a lot about Mexico in general, or if you know anything about Mexico in general, in terms of a lot of what takes place, in terms of not the actual culture of the regular people, but the actual police force, corruption is pretty rampant down there. Regina didn't write the book, but I believe there was a book on Regina Martinez. She was a kind of investigator, and there was a situation they did a survey to where they found that more people who go away and disappear are last seen in cop cars. And that is it's definitely I mean, in terms of hiring a PMC, I mean, how rampant corruption is down there, why not just get police officers to do it for you? It's crazy, but it's pretty insane. And when it comes down to the operation, like I said, they're kept from operating. A lot of us haven't seen PMCs, and hopefully we'll never see PMCs. And I am gonna try to remain hopeful about that, But when this market, the way it's growing now, the way it's able to grow, the U.S. dollar being dethroned as kind of the currency in charge, it would make sense to kind of for that to be coupled with a PMC that's able to kind of rival what we have here, or rival our current military here. Conspiracy mind is like I know there's a kind of a we're kind of want to be more liberal in terms of who we let in, how we let people in, and things of that nature. But we don't really, we haven't really, we don't have an economy, or not an economy, but we don't have a system in place that really facilitates happiness without having certain amounts of money, and we don't have a bridge from becoming an immigrant to really having a certain amount of money. We don't have that system in place, and I can easily see, that's like a, private military being able to establish that system for a lot of these guys, and it's like I said, that's a conspiracy-minded thing of mine in terms of what happens with the influx in general in terms of what's happening now. But it is something to think about. Like if there is I highly doubt that people are going to come from the outside to China's not going to send a significant military force, or Russia's not going to send a significant military force to invade. I think we're essentially seeing a lot of people come into the country anyway, and the descent into chaos would be easy to see from this point of view. And not like this is not meant to be a doomsday thing, but it does. In terms of watching out and being more alert about a lot of things, I think we do need to be more alert about that idea. Because the U.S. causes chaos around the world, and we do not, like I said, that system from immigrant or poverty in general, bridging to a normal middle income place it doesn't appear, it's almost non-existent here, right? But we gotta, in terms of what we're doing now, it's gotta, we can't really, if we haven't figured that out, but we're allowing kind of what happens outside to come in, the descent into chaos, I imagine, wouldn't be too much of a turn. And like I said, don't want to share too much of my conspiracy mind with you, with on this particular talk right here. But one thing I think people, this idea of private armies and private or PMCs, this is kind of how things were before this formation of really our international understanding of the world, right? So we create these lines that are supposed to be borders, and then kind of have a general understanding between people who may, or groups of people or countries that may be different and act in different ways. We have that through this system of imaginary lines or borders that we call that, right? And this system is not like before this system, private militaries and private armies were kind of how a lot of conflict was solved in terms of with groups among groups of people or among like powerful entities like the church in England would use private militaries, and there was situations to where like just private militaries would supplement groups of people in a lot of situations. We get this idea now in terms of what happens. This isn't necessary. This is almost like in terms of what happened then. These guys, when the war was over, and you have these people who are essentially just soldiers, supposedly disband and kind of dissolve, or supposed to dissolve. They don't necessarily. They don't just go away. Apparently they started wreaking havoc on the countrysides in particular, right? So like and that became a problem, and eventually what really caused this private military to be dissolved more forcefully was this idea of a more consistent military presence. And that allowed this idea to dissolve and for there to kind of be really a monopoly of violence given to countries, right? Given to formal quote-unquote countries that agree into this idea of lines creating borders, right? And this is kind of how a lot was done in terms of solidifying this. It was done through dissolving a lot of PMCs. Really, what we have today, and this is really crude, and this doesn't talk about really the intricacies of the infrastructure building part and stuff like that. But when it comes down to an actual country, it's kind of if you think about how the mafia supports itself by protecting enough stores. That's kind of like there's a stark analogy with how countries come up, right? The idea is we'll protect you, and this is it's a very striking resemblance to the concept of, oh, this country here means, or this country here has X amount of is under X protection, so I should probably not do that. And what we have now, it seems to be it seems to be very, very close to this idea of essentially how a mob or a mafia would operate in any city, right? We protect the locals or the local restaurants, and they give us protection money, which, I mean, in our case is taxes. And that's not to speak about infrastructure and what it takes to build and things of that nature, and the comforts of society, but in terms of all of that, it seems like it comes after the protection, right? After the protection of these people, we can kind of get ourselves situated to perform this whole quote-unquote civil society, right? This idea of a quote-unquote first world society can come after that. And in terms of this monopoly on violence, this is something that we've kind of set a precedence for violating especially right now with Iraq and Afghanistan, by hiring PMCs to go in and really take our place. And PMCs are essentially, they're used in a lot of situations, but they make it easier to engage in warfare without formally engaging in warfare. And this is, I mean, it's really becoming, and like it doesn't go back. It doesn't just go back into the bag, right? So those guys don't just, those mercenaries don't just dissolve. They go into the countryside and they cause havoc. And a lot of what happens now, it can be out of sight from us, but these guys are acting and operating and essentially looking for other ways to make money, because a lot of these guys, they'll only be good at combat or violence, and they have an incentive to try to feed their families. And when it comes down to PMCs, these guys are like they're paid more. They're paid more for than the people who are in public military in a lot of cases, which you could imagine. Like there's kind of a stigma. Oh, you went to the stigma amongst like public military talking to ex-military. Oh, you went into the private sector and stuff like that, and there's kind of an idea of like, okay, you went to the dark side, like you decided to act for profit. And people don't understand, because it's just like our leadership has kind of set that precedence, and it trickles down, right? It trickles down to a lot of the populace, specifically the populace, to where civil society that feel like civil society hasn't done them right. So the thought process of leadership, we act as criminals abroad, and kind of a lot of what takes place in our poor society, or our poor, or quote unquote, I'll say the poverty-stricken areas, we wonder why, things kind of things kind of go awry there. And in terms of when you need to feed a family, and the only thing you're really good at is kind of this idea of combat and military, those things are going to become, it becomes very appealing to join these PMCs. And this is, I can imagine this is magnified when it comes down to other countries and areas. It's easy. Particularly like I'm already kind of in the, like I said, I'm a quote unquote healing conspiracy theorist, and I kind of already think in terms of how to how things could go wrong, particularly with the military and things of that nature. I'm very much thinking like if there's a CEO out there who's profiting off of violence and able to kind of stir up things, if you think for a second that they're like, they would say, oh, this would be morally wrong to start this conflict and then have this country pay for our service. If you think that that's going to stop them from from getting profit in any way, or appealing to their shareholders and X amount, it won't. It just won't. It won't. It absolutely will not. If you think that it will, God bless you. And that's really sweet. It won't work like that. But one thing I will say is these PMCs, there's a, like I said, there's a light to the end of the tunnel outside of us being able to control this marketplace. We've kind of have a situation, right? Situation on Libya where this is kind of a hallmark situation where our country hired a PMC to train up a public military of another country, and it looks like things went right here for Libya. As far as Libya versus versus another country called Somalia, we'll talk about in a second. It looks like things went right here. They were able to train these guys up, and they were they become effective in that way. And like I said, even in the cases of Libya, they're they have more. They're more open to the idea of women being in the military than a lot of us in the U.S. So there is kind of an element of kind of opening up, and in regardless of the what how it actually takes place and how it actually rolls out in fields, I'm not sure, but it does appear that they're more open to that idea of them playing or them being in combat, women being in combat roles there, and that's had, which I would say is a kind of a more liberal or positive effect on that. And in terms of Somalia, Somalia is the other country, and this is kind of where PMCs are kind of they have things have gone wrong, right? So Libya, they had kind of a few hiccups, but it was formal in terms of the process for a PMC coming in and training up their people. Somalia, things kind of went wrong. They didn't have that formal marketplace, for a PMC to come in and train up a public military, public force. With Somalia, it was more of it was more of a wild west situation. A lot of it because a lot of it originated from this idea of really pirate. They have a large issue of pirates. I'm thinking of that movie where it's I'm the captain now. I forgot what movie that was, but there's a pirate that invades, or there's a pirate situation where they invade a ship, and this idea of what happens or what's taken place with the pirate situation, it kind of evolved out of a situation of having illegal fishermen, right? So this idea and the evolution of people who are willing to cross the border, kind of going further and further into, this concept to become pirates eventually. This is a pretty large issue, and there's incentive for pirates because there's a marketplace for pirates because you have boats leaving and coming back, and I imagine some the what you can get from a boat, really varying in terms of what you the substance that boat could provide a group of people in general. And that was, let me see, in terms of this idea of Somalia, one thing that came out of that was really interesting to hear was we kind of have this idea that everybody needs to fit into this box to where it's like, oh, these lines and these borders are kind of how things are done. And in terms of, I want to say this is Somalia, or he was talking about really addressing the situation in Somalia, or Sean in general, or Sean was talking about Somalia when he said this, but it was a situation to where maybe if we kind of quote unquote formalize families in terms of their capability to really have military power, military presence, if we formalize them and combine, in combination with the element of, a country-run military, then we'll have less conflict because, the families have kind of there's a lineage and an understanding between other families that kind of already pre-exists with a lot of these people, and that could be a way that we can lessen the friction between lessen the friction in these areas in general, because these guys could necessarily do, they can essentially have, we don't necessarily have to in this box of, oh, this is a quote-unquote formal military because the police say it's so versus a family military. And that does, it has, I think it would have significant appeal for, civilizations and cultures that have kind of been, in existence for a lot of situations, or that have been in existence before kind of we came in and decided for them how things were run. And there's also one more note that I want to point out. This guy mentions how really the most monstrous events in history have originated with the idea of humanizing war, right? So like, oh, this is the more humane thing to do. And we really, really, really need to understand that our ways of thinking have not, like, I'd like to see, us change in ways to where, like, for instance, there's I forget who wrote this book, but, they go to different versions of Earth and, they essentially invade and, basically invade and, take humanoids or humans or whatever. And they get to us, and at some point, they invade, like, New York or something like that. And we realize, like, oh, like, excuse me, they have, like, this element of, this dominating presence to where we actually decide to bomb them with a nuclear weapon. And the people in the space, these people who are like overwatching and responsible for the invasion, they're like, oh my God, it's like seeing like a baby use a revolver. Like, like just seeing like that element of like what our weapons are capable of. And if you look at our infrastructure, the gap in terms of what is insane. And I do think that I would like to see us kind of, in a lot of situations, like especially, with things like infrastructure, we shouldn't have things like Flint, of course. We shouldn't have things like, kind of there's a lot to be said about society in general, of course. But when it comes down to like what we're able to kind of get into from the standard for us, for our society, and the standard for our military weapons or our research and development, that gap is tremendous in terms of how much we have to catch up with our own military and our weapons, and research and development, of our weapons. We need to definitely do something about that. In terms of, I would say that we don't need, just because we can't do it doesn't mean we always should, right? And that's I certainly hope I didn't scare a lot of you guys, but that's been kind of Mercenaries in the Renaissance, and hopefully I'll see you soon. And please do all the YouTube podcast stuff in terms of like the video so more people see it, and or subscribe and like and subscribe. That's what they say, like and subscribe. And if you're on podcast, you can just subscribe to the channel. Thank you.